Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to take 6 insane awards websites, and today we're going to talk about how they were made, what went wrong, what went right, and we're just going to talk about the most insane sites I've ever seen that are fancy from a designer's point of view, that are insane to look at, and that have so many design lessons that I'm just so happy to talk about. So let's just get into it, because today's collection is a special one. Before I get started, I have to inform you guys, in the middle of this stream, I could jump, run away, or scream, and all of those are moments I already warned you about, because literally an hour before this whole thing started, and this is exactly why this looks so empty, the demons, the reptiles, the lizards that I have talked about on a couple of streams are back, and they've laid eggs, and they're babies of lizards. I don't want to talk about them, but they do appear whenever they want to, and I've tried absolutely everything, including every single insect killer that is available, and it just doesn't work. So I might scream and run away. I'm doing this out of such extreme bravery that you're not allowed to run away anymore, and neither am I. So if I run away, you know exactly why. I'm just being honest, as honest as I can be. With that said, let's just get started. Today's first site is pink, is cute, and is much less scary than the stuff that we have running around in this studio, if you can even believe it. Like, it's just insane how quickly the population rose. I was planning on it not to, but it's here, and apparently we've all just got to deal with it. This is serious.business, and the stuff that I like about them is when you load them up, it gives you this cute animation, and yes, it does come from HTML, CSS. If you're a programmer, I know you'll know what that is, but even if it doesn't, it's a super cool animation, and it's just something that you want to talk about, and something that's fun. I think the first thing that got me started about how great this site is the fact that we have two different fonts, and both of them are kind of taking their own vibe and kind of taking themselves seriously. Let me just talk about what I mean by that. You have a brand whose name is serious.business, and then you're using two different fonts for the both of them. Now we both know serious is a word that you would usually have with kind of serif fonts. Like, that's just the most basic rule that has ever existed, and nowadays, and I do realize, I feel like I'm making the logic backwards here, but when you start to think about it, this will actually make sense. Nowadays, most of the most professional sites that you will ever find are just very, very inclined on the whole sans serif motorboat, especially since Google came along, and especially since I started forgetting my words, because yes, there are reptilian dangers in this room, and yes, I am horrified even if I don't seem so. With that said, let's just get started. Very, very clean site. I love the color. I have not seen so much pink in a very long time, and I am really, really happy that it's finally present. A couple of good things: the buttons have awesome animations, and they've taken their smiley theme and they've continued it along. And they've really, really maintained the consistency here, which is exactly it's fun with their animations. No, they don't entirely have the smiley come in everywhere, but wherever it does, the whole animation remains consistent, and that's just something we can be appreciative about, if not at least ignore. You have a video that's running in the background. It does talk about their elements, but I think I like the fact that they have been very, very clear, not only with the brand name, but also with what they do, which is actually rarer to find these days than you would think. And this entire image is also kind of 3D. The shaders are working, and wherever you kind of hover over it does give you the kind of shadow and reflection for you to become an obvious fan. Like, this isn't even something that I can joke about at this point. You have this video that's really, really nice, and it's playing, and it's taking up its entire space, which is exactly what you would expect from any element that's actually active at all, taking the space it needs to, not shying away from it. It's just the most basic thing you could have done. You keep on scrolling, and you find, again, the stuff that I love about this absolutely is the fact that it has a lot of white space, and it's the fact that it has a constant style of animation, and it remains consistent exactly the way it works. So I think that's something we definitely need to say they got right over here, without any doubt at all. And then you also have the buttons, which continue with the animation that they did. So you kind of see the fact that when you have one element going on the right, and then when you hover over it, it kind of goes on to the left, and that's a constant timing and style of animation that always continues, whatever that might be. It's continuing, which is exactly why you are able to mentally process even when they're doing different things. This is the part that of a similar site, and it's really, really important that way. And then I do believe the fonts that they're using are extremely consistent, even if they're not entirely the same with the font of Serious or even the font of Business. I think this is a different font. It's a little bit more edgy, but it is very, very consistent no matter where you look, which is kind of nice. I love the fact that they've used these colors and they've used them so well, because you have a purple and then you have pink and you have white and you have yellow, all of which are in the same hue, which means even though purple and yellow are two different colors, you don't have the brightest yellow with the dullest shade of purple, and that kind of luminosity of the whole thing kind of remains consistent enough for us to say that this is a color palette that has been just exemplified in a completely revolutionary way, because you're able to get this cascading layout going, you're able to get the color scheme going, and most importantly, this is the part we love, you've chosen a way to make your cards, and you have a little bit of text over here, you have a specific visual identity, you have a font that's working, you have a description that's going, and it's all very consistent no matter what card you choose, and the video is also very consistent no matter what card you choose, and also the animation that takes every single card upward is exactly the same, which might sound very weird, because at the end of the day you think it's going to be insane since they're part of the same site, but that doesn't always happen, which is exactly why when it does happen, I am the most grateful person in the room. And as I'm saying that, I'm realizing I'm also grateful to all of them little demon monster reptiles who aren't jumping on me right now, because I know they're entirely capable, and I know they can just come out of anywhere. This has gone on long enough, and this is like the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in the middle of these live streams, and it is absolutely disgusting that it would just stay this way. I'm trying to avoid talking about them, but that's the thing with fear, it doesn't really leave you. Like it's so weird, and it's so messy. If you have dealt with a similar situation, please leave solutions in the comments, because I'm out of ideas and into the whole world of fear. So with that said, we have more white space for everyone, which is incredible, just what we were hoping for. Again, when you have pink and then you have white space and there is a certain harmony to it, you know you've done your job right, and that's just always a reality that's going to stay with you no matter what you do. So I think that's where they just get it right. Their header is very sticky and it does work, and all of these butters have exactly width. I think these might be the same, but they've taken edgier or at least thinner fonts and just flipped them around. So the serif font from Serious has been kind of flipped around, made thinner for this one, and the Business font that's more sans serif has been taken, made less edgy, and it's just put right here. So but that's it does actually make a lot of sense, and you have by the end of it a card layout which is also very, very simple in terms of consistency, because you have a card, you have a description, and whatever visual style there is remains consistent, which is again seemingly simple, but it's not that easy to do when you're doing a lot of things for a very long time. And then comes the principle, which I am the proudest of. When you get bored on a site, it makes sense to take the color when they've been around for long enough and to kind of switch them around, because that's just what you need to do for consistency. Like that's what you need to do for a level of intrigue, that's what you need to do when things do get boring. So I think that's just what they put to life here, same exact colors that we were working with, and they've switched them around. Black goes where pink is, pink goes where black is, and there is a level of consistency that just goes along with it. I would have wanted to see a little bit of white here though, because black background plus white text is just so common, and it's not present here, which is what's driving me nuts a little bit. But there was supposed to be a little bit of consistency which isn't present, so that's definitely something that sucks, especially when we switch the palette around. This is exactly what makes me think this isn't a dark mode layout so much as it is a flipping of every single color that they used, which is weird. Like you could have used white, white here easily, at least in some of these elements. And not only could you have used white here, you could also have switched around the title and the description in two separate ways. So I think that's something that you could have done and didn't, and it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. And then you have these Serious partners that they've continued with, and every single time I see this, I want to point out the fact that the way they are doing this is very, very specific, and the way they're doing this is very, very continuous. So you have a lot of white space going along here and here, and then you have a lot of white space going along in the second section as well, so you're remaining in your lane of consistency. And then the background color switches again, because yes, the same exact background, the same exact theme will get boring. Again, I want to talk about the footer here, because it is new, and it is something we most haven't definitely seen. We have a simple form that comes in when we want it to come in. It is very custom, which is actually quite incredible, and it lets you go back to the form when you click outside. This is also something I haven't seen a lot of times, so I think it's absolutely incredible. When you click out of the form but you weren't supposed to, it lets you have a choice of forgetting to press submit and being able to either click on the submit button now or be able to close the whole thing anyway. So at the end of the day, they have remained very consistent with the bento grid as well, which they kind of started with in the beginning of the site. And then you have your common, simple, absolutely incredible looking footer, which is full page obviously, because I think since the last year, since late 2024, every single fancy site that has, most sites that are just appearing and are appearing fancy have a continued pattern of having a full page footer, letting the name of the brand be at the bottom, letting whatever you want there to be at the bottom. Another delightful fact for you is the fact that not only is your cursor hijacked with this delightful little pink pointer, now these eyes are following you, which is kind of nice, which is kind of absolutely incredible. So I think I don't want to discount how nice it is and how many little elements went into making this whole thing work. So I think that's absolutely incredible. And then you have a bunch of links which you can obviously hover over and you can check out. So I think this really does make sense when it's supposed to make sense, and it does really work really well together when it's supposed to work together. The next thing that I'm talking about, otc.io/English, because apparently this does work in many different languages. This is a fancy site and it has many cool elements that we should have talked about before. Number one, the card layout of the entire screen just has a level of edginess which you wouldn't usually see elsewhere, and which remains really consistent no matter where you go, and it remains very 3D in the sense you can hover over it wherever you want to and things will shift accordingly. This does have a little bit of parallax element to it, which means scrolling happens on its own terms and not on the speed at which you're scrolling the entire screen, which is kind of nice. And your cursor is hijacked on a specific element as well, which is also absolutely incredible. So you have this light that's coming up and taking all of the space that it needs to. So I think at the end of the day, the bento grid is fine and it works really well. The colors are all very incredible, and it does a lot of simple things very well in terms of getting the colors right, getting the elements right, getting the positioning right, and I don't think I was able to have any major problems with it. Overall, 10 out of 10, because I don't really see much wrong with the site other than the fact that it could have been longer, which isn't really a concern. It's more of the fact that we were craving more and it was delightful. So that's OTC for you. The next site that I'm going to be talking about today is Intrepid Automation, because why would we not? Are you ready for perfectly made parts? And this is exactly the kind of vibe that makes me think there is going to be either this is the best site I've ever seen, especially when you look at the tagline, either this is definitely the best site you and I have ever seen, or it's the worst thing in the whole world and we're just preparing ourselves for a disaster. So just brace yourself, because we don't know what's happening. Anything could happen. I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore. Let's see what happens. If create supply, this actually might be good. Create supply chain resiliency with our digital classing solutions, and as soon as you start to scroll, every single word changes color. Every single word is exactly the way it's supposed to be, which is absolutely incredible. There are light panels at the top, which I'm surprised at this level of consistency, and there is a bunch of kind of 3D elements which are working as you're scrolling with them. And I think the thing that surprises most people is how were they able to have these different elements that kept light going as you started scrolling them, because this isn't 3D. No, it's not. This isn't HTML, CSS, basic programming or design. It isn't. It is a video that's progressing very slowly, and it's programmed to work along with your cursor. So as soon as you start to scroll lower and lower, the video progresses higher and higher, and with that the light kind of comes up, if that makes sense, because this is a question I've gotten a bunch of times about how these weird illusions happen. It's something that we saw in a previous site, and it's just something that comes up as a question because you don't know how it happened, and it's absolutely incredible. Supply chain unchained. So I think they're very easy with changing the words, which is absolutely incredible, because you don't get to see that happen. And then this video, when you thought things couldn't get any better, then this video goes ahead and changes itself into a weird blueprint, and then it takes up this entire text box which changes colors one by one. So I do think it does work very well in terms of every single word that it's working with, and it does have all of these elements that take up the space, take up their own area, and take up their own vibe. So white space is on point, text hierarchy is on point, they highlight exactly what they need to highlight when they need to highlight it. You can't complain with a simple black and white layout, which is very consistent, and it's very difficult for us to find flaws in. Finally, is there a video? This is still a video. Don't consider it 3D. Finally, there is a video, and the reason this seems to be such a fun video, it's basically made of 3D, but then they exported it as MP4, and then they tried to put it in, and then it did work, but this video background is slightly different, which, if this was my site, I would be driven insane, because you're not supposed to have that. It's just plain idiocy. And then you have all of these texts and excellent hierarchy, by the way. You know where the highest level of titles is, you know where the descriptions are, and you know exactly where what's supposed to be, and you know exactly what's supposed to be and where it's supposed to be, and it does really work well. And then you have another copy of this exact same layout, but the fact that it has been made so well and repeated again ensures consistency. So I don't think anyone is surprised that this happened, but it's nice to see. And now we're starting to see kind of a repetitive theme, where there's text that kind of goes orange when the specific word needs highly model, and very, very simple titles and descriptions, and very, very simple descriptions as far as they go. Speaking of descriptions and speaking of little things, I continue to be horrified by the little animal in the room. I'm trying to get it out, but beyond a point, it doesn't matter what nice place you are sitting in, it just happens, because life happens. And this is so weird, because I know there will be a jump scare. I don't see it coming even now, and it might happen, and it might spoil the entire stream or make it. I just don't know. If you guys have any hacks, let me know, because there is an actual threat here, even if it doesn't seem to be. Only half an hour ago, it was lurking in the background, and there isn't just one of him, like there's multiple of them. So with that said, my own fears aside, you have a title, and you have wonderful animations when animations are required. 3D elements where background goes high when you kind of hover over them, and the text actually starts to become visible, which either went because opacity went from 0 to 100, which is what I'm suspecting over here, or colors actually changed, both of which are simple ways to do this. And then these cards do change color, these tabs do change color. It's kind of nice, because when you're very black and white and deep in that world, being able to see elements that actually turn orange, get your attention to what you're hovering on right now, it's a bunch of clarity that we always wanted. So I think it remains consistent and repeats it long enough for us to say that this is actually a good site. And then you actually are able to see the last pattern that we saw behind this section. This title, this image, and this kind of cards repeat over and over again, which is kind of nice. You have this title, this description, and yes, there are 3D models as videos, but that's also the vibe of this site. Overall, you have a really, really nice designing. Up says hi, hello, welcome back. If you remember the reptile remembers me too, and you are in for a surprise today. So this is a fun stream. I just wanted to let you know, because I just want to let everyone know, because everything that's happening today is absolutely insane. Like, I did not expect this to be here at all, and finally we are here. So what can you do? You have these bunch of cards that take up exactly what they need to take up. The horrifying part about these cards is, as you hover over them, as you keep on going, this card in the center, the most important one, turns black, but it doesn't really happen all the way for factory scale and scalability, for factory cell and scalability. So they are never the card that is being highlighted, which will gnaw on my brain for the eternity of time, because it was supposed to happen and it hasn't. And this is just inconsistency. Like, this was a 10 out of 10 site that just decided it didn't want to be that anymore, which is disastrous, which is absolutely disastrous. You have a description and a title, and consistency in terms of font sizes was never the question ever with the site. And then you have 4 wonderful faces staring at us quite creepily, which also I will agree to, because I have no problem with it whatsoever. And then you have these bunch of cards that just take up their space, and there is a level of animation that goes along with them. Ready when you are. Again. Footer is full page. As I said, most footers from late 2024 have been this way, and this is going to be a trend that lasts, especially because when things take up the amount of space that they're supposed to, and it's magnanimous and it's absolutely incredible, you have no questions about what they are and how they are and where they are. So I do think it's working really well. It has all the important links, has all the logos it needs to, scrolls you back, has the name of the developer. So I think overall it just has everything you need to have. I am going to give this an 8 out of 10 simply because there are a level of small inconsistencies that just drive me nuts. For example, and I'm not without explanation, for example, this why did the two of these not turn black? Anyone in the whole world will tell you that this is absolutely messed up. But also, on some level, especially after the first most incredible part kind of went away, after this went away, everything was very, very expected, and everything was so, so simple that beyond a point you're not in love with the whole thing anymore, and beyond a point it does become extremely boring. So I don't think I want that to happen. So that's exactly why 8 out of 10. The next site that we're talking about, studiosandtempo.com. I have no idea what this site holds. I have no idea, and I'm really, really excited to find out. Studios and Tempo is a studio with a bunch of helium balloons, so no idea what that's about. There is a logo which animates weirdly, and there is a weird menu that was supposed to be a menu, but it's now a plus for some reason. So we are an Italian design studio focused on CGI, art direction, and 3D motion. I think I like the fact that they're very, very clear with what they do, which is nice, because this is exactly where white space was now needing to be required. A little bit of break was always needed. You can search from their products, you can get an access to their kind of bento grid, which is one line each, and you can animate below the title, and it's all really, really nice and makes sense, especially because there's a video animating, especially when you hover over it. So I do think it is a very simple site, but that isn't always a good thing, especially because it's a very simple site, and the thing it shines at is actually the videos, which is not what we're judging today. So it's quite simple, which is fun, and it did end up in Awwwards.com, so I'm not the person to question it, but it's very, very expected. And you have the tagline, always happy for pizza parties, new projects, coffee together, collaborations, and I love the way they've framed this. And I'm definitely stealing it for myself as well, with a bunch of credit or not credit, no idea at this point. But I do think the way they've kind of framed it is very, very expectable, and it gets boring to a point where you don't know what this project is for. You just see kind of a visual vibe, and it does become irritating when you have no idea what technologies they used, or what they did, or what their expertise was from all of these things that they can do, and then they just had these bunch of videos go on. So I do think that's kind of what's getting to me over here. You have this incredible animation going on at the footer where studio kind of changed into Sentempo, which is hybrid over what we usually saw, which was the name of the brand taken up on a full scale footer, which was actually incredible. But also I would want to point out over here, the middle lengths of the site were just so simple that even if you're able to do a wonderful footer, it does lead you to question how things went and how everything just was. And then you have these bunch of links, and you have all of this incredible data, but the fact that there isn't a lot of description for the actual projects here is what's driving me a little bit insane. Is this a nice site? Absolutely. Does this get many elements right? Yes. I didn't even see that whole animation go off, and I love it. It's absolutely 8 out of 10 work for me. Not the fanciest thing in the whole wide world, especially because things do get boring, but also it does have some absolutely incredible elements. For example, this bento grid, which actually works exactly the way it is. I think the moment that really, really got to me with this entire site today was the fact that these images have poor, if that can be said, loading speeds. Like the loading speeds for all of these images was just absolutely horrible, which leads me to the fact that this stream may or may not be working. Give me a second. Wow. If the stream is not live, that would be horrible. That seems to be the case, though. This stream's struggling, which is weird. Well, we are finally back again, so I guess I have no choice but to continue. the most incredibly annoying part about this entire site is the fact that these images are not optimized, which might seem like the smallest thing to say in the whole wide world, but it's not, because eventually things are going to go responsive, and eventually things are going to go into a 3G network, or an area where it doesn't require the fastest speeds in the whole world, and that's when you're really going to start to see those numbers start to fall off, and you have a bunch of animations, and you have a bunch of projects, but again, there is no description whatsoever, and this could mean whatever the hell you wanted it to mean, which is exactly what's getting to me. And overall, 8 out of 10 is not the worst rating for this site. In fact, it's quite generous. Studios and Tempo, 8 out of 10. Let's go to the next one. Home, mooders.net. This seems to be a fun site. This should be fun. Let's just see what happens, because I have no idea what is going to happen, so I'm just hoping something good actually happens. This is a fun site, and it does have a really, really fun animated dynamic, although you have to reload it to be able to see anything at all, which is quite annoying. Weird. And now we're just waiting. Can we just skip to the next site while this loads, because that might take a while? Let's just do it, because this stream plus these sites, it's a bunch of things. Alright, the next site that we're talking about, scratch that old one, we'll get back to it later. ChristinaGomezRuiz.com, because why not? This is a portfolio for a photographer, and I do hope they have a couple of really nice photos, because why not? The element that gets to me today is we've started to see these come into trend, but location and time is like the weirdest little detail to add to your own site, and yet it adds so much context that you're absolutely a fan of the way things to get to all of these links. But you also can choose light mode, dark mode, who this person is, and you're able to have a very, very big wide view of the things and the way they're going. You have this really, really clear description, and anyone who wants to know can know. I think the moment that things 3D started to fall off for this description was when any one of these words wasn't highlighted the way it was supposed to. Like it's all a lot of text, and it's here at once, and you can't even decide how it moves. Like I can't click on anything to make the speeds change. No important words are highlighted, which means nothing is highlighted at all, which is a bunch of text garbage. So you just don't know what's happening and where it's happening. So that's a negative point, and we see it very, very clearly. You have this image which takes the space in the background that it needs to, and it is exactly where it needs to be, and you have nothing else to go with that as context, which is what's driving me insane now. And you have a bunch of videos where there was no context at all. You can choose between different photo shoots, I believe, which is kind of nice, and you have this little suspended layout where speeds can be decided, which is also incredible, but it does get repetitive very, very quickly, which is why I was wanting to see a little bit more newness in things. Wow. I think the thing that's constant with many of these sites is they have the background even when they don't need to have a loader, which is something Gary Simon pointed out, and it's actually very, very true, because you don't always need to have a loader in these sites. You don't need to have a loader in most sites these days, and yet there is still a loader, maybe because they're making you wait for something, and that does add a little bit of a UX, but eventually if it slows you down, you have to think about cutting it at some point, because 5-second long loaders will not sustain an audience. They will make people drop off and run away, which is something you don't really want to have. Again, the same exact problem that we had before has come into play again. You had a description that wasn't the fanciest thing in the world, and it's not even highlighting the words that it needs to highlight, and it just stays exactly the way it is, which is weird. And now you have your final footer where everything is taking up the space that it needs to. The header and the footer are very, very consistent in their styles, which is absolutely incredible. Everything looks very, very simple, and everything looks really, really easy to work with, which is absolutely incredible. Overall, 9 out of 10 for this site, especially because the texts were just punched into clumps and nothing was highlighted, and it does throw into question the whole entirety of the site, and also you're not able to tell anything at all by this description. I think I like the fact that they're actually very, very consistent with their headers and footers and the fonts, no matter whether it is in a chunk of a text somewhere, but I do like the fact that they're very consistent with the way they're working with things, which is exactly why Cristina Gomez Ruiz, 9 out of 10. The next site that we're talking about, the one we were talking about just before this, Mooders, which seems to be going through something and changing colors exactly when it wants to. Wow, look at this. This is so weird. Things taking up their own space. I think the fact that they have 4 different, a little bit of context. Yes, they have 4 different background videos on this perceivably wide screen, or maybe 5 actually. And it changes, and you're able to realize that the moment you hover over anything at all, and then you have this weird area where the video in the background comes into the foreground, but the fact that it changes so quickly and the user doesn't even know it happens is what's not only slowing the site down, but also getting jarring and makes you seem like the site is having a heart attack for some reason, which is not supposed to happen. It's very inconsistent and very, very weird. I'm trying scrollable. You do have a menu. You can choose the things that you can choose, and it does tell you a lot of the things it needs to tell very, very simply, which I absolutely love. They've broken down the site into its own elements, and they've been very, very consistent with it. What are they about? 3 different lines, very, very clear, simple animation, especially if you hover over it. What are their works? These are their works, and you're able to tell them very, very easily. What is the news? This is the news. You're able to tell it very, very easily, and the contact information is also very, very quick. So I think you're not very confused about anything at all. Celebrate with Cartier is one of the sites that was also in these awards reviews and that we talked about. Supposed to open up a link, but this site seems to be inexplicably slow. Again, a ton of animation happening under the hood. There is a lot of white space. Font consistency, especially between this and this, remains, so you have a little bit of a thickness issue, but there is at the end of the day a very, very consistent font style, and it does look really, really good, and you can change between dark and light modes, but it's at the end of the day, it tries to be minimal and it tries to go with the whole modern art look, but lack of any description whatsoever on what the site does is what makes life very, very difficult, because you just don't know what's going to happen and you just don't know how. So overall, mooders.net, I give the site an 8 out of 10, especially because I have no idea what's happening, and it horrifies me a little bit because no one knows what's happening, and it has like 4 different videos under the hood. The good thing about this site was you're able to tell everything very, very quickly and easily, so there is good description, and I didn't even know this description existed until right about now, which is also jarring and reinforces my point about 8 out of 10. Is there supposed to be an image here? Is there not supposed to be an image here? What am I supposed to take out of it? I have no idea. A nice looking site, functions really, really well, has simple animations, you know what to expect, doesn't really make you scroll or work for it, which is also nice in terms of web design. 8 out of 10, not the best thing in the world, not the worst thing in the world. Overall, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the top 10 sites for today that we just saw, and not only are they incredible, they just make you think about the web as a whole, take a bunch of inspiration, learn a bunch of new techniques. I hope I'll see you again tomorrow with 6 other sites, and also there is a bunch of new stuff coming on the channel which I'm also holding out a lot of resources and time and hope for, so just stick around for it. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like this video, click on the bell notification while subscribing so you know when I go live, which is 9 PM Indian Standard Time or 3:30 PM GMT, wherever you are in